This is the Criterion Creeps podcast, and tonight we're talking about High Noon from 1952, directed by Fred Zinnemann, and this is part of our continuing look at the Criterion Laserdisc Collection. Just little side steps from our regular creep to look at, I guess you'd say, more populist movies, I guess, back when Criterion was first starting up back in the day. So High Noon, the tagline for this film: the story of a man who was too proud to run. And the tagline, and the synopsis from Letterboxd: High Noon is about Will Kane, the sheriff of a small town in the New Mexico territory, who learns a notorious outlaw he put in jail has been freed and will be arriving on the noon train. Knowing the outlaw and his gang are coming to kill him, Kane is determined to stand his ground. He attempts to gather a posse from among the local townspeople. That's the movie in a nutshell. Good night, folks.
Good night.
Hey, this movie's got a sung song about this specific movie, which is one of those traits that I don't think has come up in any of the Criterion movies we've watched to this point, where a movie or the song written for it describes the entire plot and the actions that's going to happen from that point forward. Mm-hmm. So that's unique.
Well, the Blob had a theme song, but it wasn't like the Blob's eating people.
That's close though. It's halfway there. You're right.
It's almost.
I forgot about that Blob. I kind of thought, I was like, when I wrote that, I'm like, I think there might have been something, but what could possibly belong in the Criterion Collection that would be that unclassy? And it's like, oh, right,
the grade A chum,
the Blob. And there's no song about "I'll feed without a face." Unfortunately.
I just let that linger, so people know how bad of a person you are.
So this movie, right off the bat in the credits, it notifies us that this is based on a story called The Tin Star by John W. Cunningham. This isn't exactly true. Apparently, this idea had been come up with by the writer, and there was like this short story that had been published around the same time that was very similar. And just to prevent any sort of lawsuit, they just went and bought the rights for the story just to cover their ass.
Nice.
So I watched the nice Olive Films Blu-ray of this that came out a few years ago, and I think has since now been replaced by like a masterpiece edition of it, which I'm sure is like has the exact same print but more special features, which is whatever. I'm not going to go buy that. I just bought this Blu-ray, but I will say that this Blu-ray does a really nice showcase of the Floyd Crosby cinematography, because this movie looks very sharp, really cool. And yeah, so the song that I mentioned, sung for this movie, is done by one Tex Ritter, and it's called High Noon. I love the use of the music over all the actions of this movie, and I love the fact that there's no sound effects and there's no dialogue over this scene of a guy just waiting on a hill out in the middle of the Old West, and then another guy shows up, and then another guy. And they ride off and to go do something. And we don't know who they are. We don't know if they're good guys, bad guys. They're just guys getting together. But it sets this movie up with a lot of purpose. And you're like kind of curious at this point, hey, what happens next? So I've seen High Noon a couple times in my life. Actually, it's only been a few years since I last watched it, because it was one of those Westerns that I'd seen way back in the day on videotape. And then when I was doing my big like Western watching and stuff like that, I was like, well, I guess I should watch High Noon again, and I did. And it's always a movie that I've liked. It's not like one of my favorite Westerns by any means, but I think it's total classic. Total classic,
guys.
And
did you ever say that?
Yeah, I mean, Tell
me how you feel.
I feel good. I feel good about watching this movie again. It's an easy watch, RJ.
How do you feel about the age difference between Gary Cooper and Grace Kelly?
So
did that put you off by any at all?
We'll talk about Gary Cooper.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I think you just watched this movie for the first time not that long ago, because you didn't realize at the time that we would be watching it in the Laserdisc Collection so soon.
I didn't. I thought it was going to be way later, but I'm stupid. So I watched this thanks to Letterboxd. I pinpoint the exact time I watched it. It was June 20th, 2017, 8 months ago.
Yeah.
Is all. So not even a whole year. I watched this because I was like, I've never seen High Noon, and I like westerns, and I want to watch it. So I did. I liked it then, and 8 months later, I like it again now. I think High Noon is this really like what you said is a good point. It's not my favorite western or anything like that, but I think it's really cool. I like the layout of this movie where, like you said, they just get started. It's like, here's three guys, and then you just like, it just lets you kind of be the audience and watch what this movie is about. And then I really like the layout of what this movie is. How it's just fucking old ass Gary Cooper walking around. He's like, is it
so? I'm not kidding.
There?
So my like note here to introduce Gary Cooper is old ass Gary Cooper getting married.
Yeah. See, we're hanging out too much now.
Yeah.
We're taking on each other's things. But you get old ass Gary Cooper walking around.
So Gary Cooper, how old do you think he was in this movie?
I've looked it up.
Yeah.
I know how fucking old he was in this movie because I saw him, and then I saw Grace Kelly, this lovely young woman, and I was like, in what world are these two fucking people getting married? I guess the Old West.
It was olden times.
Yes, yeah. So it is believable, but I was put off by like the bags under Gary Cooper's eyes, where it's just like he's so tired that it's like, I guarantee that fucking dude has been sleeping like all day, and he just woke up to do this scene, and he's like, ugh. So Gary Cooper, at the time of filming, in when did this come out? 1952.
Yeah.
Gary Cooper.
So the movie might have been. It probably was shot in like 51.
Yep. So he was 51 years old.
Yep. Because he was like basically almost a centennial baby. Born. Yeah.
Grace Kelly was not even half that at a spry 23.
Yeah.
So more than double the age. That's like some Celine Dion stuff right there.
So some other fun facts. Gary Cooper would be dead like not even 10 years later. He died in 1961.
10 years is a long time. I thought you were going to say like 10 months later.
Oh, no.
It's like, Gary
died
Cooper
young.
died 30 years later.
He only died when he was 60.
Well, look how tired he looks.
I know. Well, because it was like olden times. People like age way harsher than they do nowadays.
Do you think it was all the liquor or
hard living, man? All those
hard living.
I'm sure he saw himself through some wars and stuff.
Did he fight war?
He might. He would have been fighting age during World War I. But we can learn more about Gary Cooper. Maybe dodge that bullet. He was an film extra, stunt rider. There's no mention of military service. Maybe it was just hard drinking, hard living.
Nice.
Yeah, he was a Montanian.
I know. Real close. He was from Helena.
Yeah.
Real close to us, baby.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I think this movie's really cool because, like I said,
because you like 50-year-old men dating 23-year-olds and getting married to them.
Yeah, but I like the reversal when it's old ladies, Harold and Maude style. When it's old dudes, it's just creepy, like Jarrett style.
It was the times. I mean, there's also
I know it still is
Gregory Peck and Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn in Charade.
It still is now. I mean, old dudes love younger ladies, and younger ladies love fucking old ass men like Gary Cooper.
Yeah,
maybe not Gary Cooper, but guys like Gary Cooper. But anyways, Jarrett, I think it's really cool how this this entire movie is just him walking around, being like, "Won't anybody help me?" And then it just keeps cutting back to like Lee Van Cleef at the train station. Mm-hmm. They're just waiting. The whole time. I think it's cool that just drinking. I think this movie is really neat in that it plays out in real time. You just keep looking up at the clock, and it's like, fuck, we got an hour till noon.
Yep.
That's when the train comes in. I think that is really cool. I also like I like the discussions that people have in this, like specifically the church one, where it's like those like they don't like get into it really, but it's kind of like the group versus the individual, where they're talking about like what it means for one person to stand for a group and whether or not groups can stand for, like with individuals and stuff like that. this is above my pay grade. I'm just saying I really like the conversations that those people had. I think it's big ideas, man. Big ideas. What they mean, I don't know. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just dudes talking. I think it's really funny. One guy is like, he's like, "What are we getting so excited about? It's not like something's gonna happen." Like he's just like totally like it's like in Annihilation, like we were talking about in the preamble. It's like, oh, it's just a trick of the light. What are we getting all excited about? It's not like anything's gonna happen. So I think that is all very cool. It's this really slow build up, but it doesn't feel like it feels natural because you see the clock and it is in real time. Basically, it's like, yeah, we got an hour until noon, and then you get the big shootout, which is neat.
There's some really nice filmmaking too, because it's like so after you get the High Noon song sung, the first sound that we hear is the ringing of the bell in the town. So it's like the first thing we hear is the indication of time. So it's this entire movie that's like basing itself on the passage of time and just like that countdown, I guess, to the title of the movie, which is like when the action is going to happen, because everything is just like all set up for that moment to come, whatever that moment is. And it's like we'll get to it, I guess, as we get closer to it. But yeah, I mean, essentially, it's like there's like westerns that get made after this point where like the movies are like nonstop high noon sequences where it's just like, oh, guys, it's getting gunned down and shot, and then they move on to the next scene, and it's all a series of like events built on a series of shootouts. Whereas this movie is built on getting to one dramatic shootout, and it's way more interesting, even though the movie's only got one. And I guess like that was like pretty groundbreaking, I guess, when High Noon came out, and like really would have kind of put classic or people who are like fans of like what Western should be, which is just like action movie delivery systems. And this movie's like this like thoughtful kind of like slow burn about one shootout, and that's it. And people are like, "Wow, what is this? Cool. What's this movie about arguing about people being good people or not? Everyone should just be good and just do this, blah blah blah." So this movie's like more about the lack of character of people when they're faced with actual adversity and like,
and it does a really good job too, because it's like that stubborn determination of Gary Cooper. Like he's a real fucking cowboy, man. Like, you know, he's a real cowboy, and he's doing that hero sacrifice. He's like, I'll do it even if I have to do it alone. He's like, I'll be the man to stand up for the town. And then,
but he's not super gung ho about it either. Like he just
feels like he has. Yeah, like, he doesn't really want to. He's just like, I guess I have to do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I love the setup of it. So, kind of going back to my notes a little bit. I really love how like the three like outlaws, I guess, or like the dudes, they're introduced by like the camera passing to each of their faces as like the one guy at the train station's like, so and so, thumbless Timmy,
Cactus Bill.
Yeah, exactly. And it just passes to one to one. It's like, what a great way of like naturally introducing characters in this like economical like way that makes sense in the way that the scene's laid out. You're like, oh, like all this is laid out in this clever way. There's no wasted time. And it's like it feels natural and kind of like a still stylized Hollywood Western kind of way, but it's done smart, I guess. And it doesn't bring attention to itself unless you're like watching this movie specifically to like write notes about, because you have to do it for a podcast. And then you kind of go, oh, look at that. That's really nice. What a nice little attention to detail.
No podcast would take anything that seriously.
No. So yeah, the movie, of course, it takes place on his wedding day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So old Will Kane getting married, and he just got married. Everything's going to be great. All the town council, they were telling him, oh, we're such good, close, personal friends. We'd always have your back. What's the worst thing that could happen in the next 2 hours while you go on your honeymoon? You can just hang your gun and badge up. We've got this covered, until things actually do happen, and then are like, uh-oh, that guy you sent away, he just got a pardon, and now he's coming back. Oh boy. And so yeah, the one thing that I guess I didn't mention in our preamble about what we'd watched lately, but I actually watched another Fred Zinnemann movie that won Best Picture in 1966, A Man for All Seasons.
Sounds wicked boring.
It's actually pretty awesome if you're into medieval biopics.
Is it?
I love this stuff, like Lion in Winter, Beckett, and A Man for All Seasons. Are you familiar with Thomas More, who got into
Not at all.
Are you familiar with Henry VIII and Anna Boleyn? All that jazz.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, vaguely. Okay. So that's a movie that like frames the whole story around Thomas More being a principled man in a world of cowards, which I think resonates quite a bit here with High Noon, where you have a man who's like kind of got this attitude, and people around him are like kind of like useless when it comes right down to it, and it's all about kind of doing the right thing, I guess, in the face of adversity. So it was a convenient thing that I happened to be watching this one Best Picture winner against High Noon, which did not win a Best Picture of any sort because it was only a Western. Okay.
Well, Westerns have won, right?
Well, not until I think Unforgiven was definitely.
That was the first one that won.
I might
like
be wrong.
40 years of Westerns.
I would have to double check. I guess there was like in the early days there was like Cavalcade, which has Western moments in it.
What about Painting Your Wagon?
No, that movie did not win Best Picture. That movie is not so great.
Okay.
I think like maybe there's like Cavalcade. I guess you could call it a Western, but boy, oh boy. I'll double check though.
Sure.
Got any thoughts here, RJ, you want to share while I'm looking this up very quickly?
Oh, you're looking this up?
Yep.
I don't know, man. Like, it's kind of like what you were saying. It's not.
Okay, RJ. So
Okay.
it wasn't. Yeah, it was Cimarron. Cimarron, I guess, would be a Western, but like it's like a big, like a piece about like just the history of America. So it's got Western elements. So that was 1931. Do you know what the next Western is that won Best Picture?
Dances with Wolves?
Correct. In 1990. So 60 years later, Dances with Wolves wins, and that's followed by Unforgiven 2 years later. And that's it. There's been 3 Westerns out of 89, and it's going to be 3 out of 90 here on Sunday.
What, you don't think the Western is going to win this year?
No,
some people would call Three Billboards a modern Western.
And those people would be an asshole.
Hey, what do you think the best Western ever is?
Oh my God, you're making me look at lists. Hey, can we talk about this movie for a little bit? Okay.
Yeah. Hey, why don't we talk about High Noon, the movie that we were watching for the Criterion Laserdisc Collection?
Okay. So, RJ, I got a question here that I wrote down to myself because it's a scene that made me laugh watching this movie.
Okay.
That is, how many times in actual law enforcement history has an arrested, convicted criminal come back to get revenge on the specific officer of the law who brought them to justice?
This is shot in the dark, but I'm gonna say like 3.
Yeah, probably. It's as many as Westerns have won Best Picture. It's one of those tropes that exists in movies that it always makes me laugh because I'm like, it works, right? I mean, it's like this idea of like, oh, son of a bitch. It's a revenge story, but from the flip side, and now you've like a good guy. And it's like it situates everything perfectly. You have the good guy, and you have a bad guy, and the bad guy is going to continue doing bad things. But I mean, it really takes off in the '80s during like the super cop era when every movie coming out was like cops on the edge, and then there's like the sicko criminals who like get out and they decide I'm gonna go back and rape his wife, and that's like there's so many of those movies that exist, and this movie's like not quite there, but it's the same trope. And I'm always like, I was thinking about it watching this. I'm like, oh, it's happening again. It's like fine, it's just a trope, but I don't know. I think about that sometimes.
Well. Where does that happen? Westerns, crime movies.
Yeah, lots of crime movies.
Yeah. Biblical adventures, like Moses. Like he got kicked out and then he came back for revenge.
Are you saying that Moses, the head of like Judaism, is a criminal and a bad guy?
So you remember how old Gary Cooper was in High Noon?
Very old.
Fuck, he was old, hey? We're kind of like out of lots of things to say.
Oh, I have lots of notes, but you keep throwing these things out saying, hey, Jared, what are your favorite Westerns?
Okay, well, don't worry about that now. Tell me about High Noon.
Okay. This movie reminds me of a lot of people. sadly, weirdly, loser scumbags that everybody likes because they are a good time, despite those good times actually being bad times. So one of the things that's interesting about this movie is like there's I think the hotel manager, and he's like talking about things were good when Frank Miller was living here in town. We made a lot more money. And everyone's like, yeah, I remember the days that Frank Miller lived here at the gang. It was way more exciting. All this money, all this good times. But it's like, no, Frank Miller was bad. He's, I mean, sure, he made Sin City and whatever. But come on, what about all the bad things Frank Miller's done when he was living in this town?
Holy Terror?
And The Spirit.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Like 3 people are going to laugh at that. And the rest of the people are going to just hate you.
Right. So anyway, yeah, I like that depiction because it's pretty real. People like, yeah, but what about the good old days when like the gang terrorized the town and did horrible things, and we actually had to have him arrested and sent away. But now he's coming back, and now we're like, oh, that might be a good thing, because at the same time, it's like, well, we're getting used to the idea of like there's nothing we can do about him, and we also just get used to the fact that he's going to kill the sheriff, and it'll be like what it used to be, and I guess we'll just have to accept it and toil away in the sugar mines.
Yeah, but isn't that like that common thing, like in mob movies, Western movies, where it's like no one snitches because like they look after you, even though they like take 80% of your earnings?
I guess I follow that under a different kind of thing, I suppose. Anyway,
Holy Terror.
Anyway, that's just like one of those things that I think that was a well observed little bit of the script.
Nice.
I feel like there's like the church scene when Gary goes to plead his case at the church to get like to rally up some people to help him face these people. And I wrote the note that this is like 19th century Twitter, where like all these like assholes just like come up with all sorts of ideas, and they're just like off topic and have nothing to do with the subject at hand, and just like why do I pay my tax dollars and now I gotta put my life on the line? And it's just I don't know, it's a cross section of society, and of course it's all men talking because that's how it goes. Proper ladies don't converse in manly matters.
Not in a church.
Nuh-uh.
Come on.
And then we get the great scene of Lon Chaney at the barber, where he says things like, "They just don't care, and it's all for nothing."
It's all for nothing.
Just like your niece the other day.
Oh, well, what you got to understand is nobody cares.
Yeah.
See, isn't that like deep, profound wisdom? It's like, what you got to understand is nobody cares.
Yeah.
Spoken only like a 5-year-old can.
And then like the next great moment in this movie for me is when Herb, the one guy who shows up, one of the deputies, is like, "Come on, we're gonna get him," and he's like, "Where's everybody else?" He's like, "Well, there is no one else. It's just you and me." Herb's like, "What? No, I mean, you know, I would have been here for you all along, but I mean, I got a wife and kids. I got to think about them, and I gotta go.
I gotta go.
You know how it is. I mean, it's like, yep, hiding behind the numbers game. That's
yeah. You know what? He doesn't blame him. He's just like, I know,
Herb. I
get it.
Go home, Herb. I'm gonna go die by myself because everyone sucks. Even my wife is leaving me because she's a Quaker and doesn't believe in this horse shit, and I could just leave, but I can't do that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, like I made the mention before, this movie is just building toward one exchange, which is like usually like, man, when you watch a spaghetti western, these movies open up with gun battles, and they're just punctuated with gun battles that like each one increasingly means less because like you've seen so many, and all yours like, when's our lead character going to get killed? Is this going to be a dark, cynical movie where he does die at the end, or is it just going to be like he blows through all the Mexicans kind of thing? Typical Western sort of stuff.
Yep.
One of the things that I was like, ooh, RJ will appreciate this is look at Gary Cooper saving horses.
He does save those horses, and I thought that was terrific because usually in Westerns are particularly bad for this. Usually you have horses running over trip lines.
Oh,
and
man.
It is very sad because you know what? I bet that horse broke its leg, and they probably had to kill it.
Yeah, there's always that chance.
Yeah, because horses break their legs like all the fucking time, and you know what? It's too god dang expensive to heal up a horse leg.
Yeah, it
So,
is.
but yeah, so I did like it. I did like that he saved those horses, even though what's his name, Lloyd Bridges, was being a real bat,
Yeah.
trying to punch him and stuff. What a
Mhm.
jerk!
And then Grace Kelly, Quaker lady, she shoots that unarmed man in the back. Yeah, so we get the big shootout, and it's really well handled. The whole town clears out, so it's a bunch of empty streets, and Scary Cooper going 1-on-4. And yeah, I just love the bit where Grace Kelly comes back for her man, abandoning all her stuff, and she goes and shoots a guy in the back. After he runs out of bullets, and he's just standing there, and he catches it right in the ass, and he just keels over dead because it was the 50s.
Well, have you never been shot in the ass? You die.
Yeah, right, just dead,
Sucks.
flat out dead.
Yeah.
Yep, and then the movie just kind of ends with a big old fuck all y'all as everyone comes out after the dust's cleared and Gary's last man standing, and he just is like, well, thanks for nothing, and he clears the fuck out, and it's just the end, and I
Throws
don't know.
his badge in the fucking dirt, and he's
yeah.
like, "See you later, losers."
Yeah, I did my job. See you later. So
And the theme song strikes up.
That's
and
right.
then you're just like, "Shit,
Yep.
did he make the right call?"
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it really makes you think,
It
Jarrett.
really makes you think. So yeah, I made the decision to watch the sequel to High Noon, the television movie that came out
Tell me about that.
in 1980, called High Noon Part 2, The Return of Will Kane. Yeah, so this is directed by some guy, and it stars Lee Majors playing Gary Cooper. So the movie takes place, like, I guess, a few years after the action of High Noon, and so he's now de-aged and he's a different man, and it's just Lee Majors, who has like no real screen presence that I could detect. He's just a guy in this movie. But so him and his new wife, not Grace Kelly, they show up. They're there to start a new life again and start raising cattle and horses and stuff. They've got a purchase order all lined up. And while they're there waiting to do the pickup and stuff, David Carradine shows up with his gang. And he wants to just buy these horses off of him, but they're like, "Well, no, we need that stud. We need this stuff. I recognize you. I think I've sent you to jail." Good times.
And they do it again.
Well, before you think that it's going to go down that route, it turns out that they're wanted men. This David Carradine and his boys, and the new sheriff of the town. He's a real sadist, a real mean bounty hunter type guy who just kills people. And there's a big shootout. A bunch of horses get shot up and killed, but like in TV movie way, where it's just like not really happening, and they put some like some corn syrup on horses, at least from what I could detect. But sometimes if you watch this, you might imagine some things that aren't really there.
I don't ever exaggerate or jump to conclusions. I am a man of facts
In principle.
and principle.
Yeah.
So I just want to say two things. Lee Majors, at the time of filming, was 41 years old.
Yeah.
10 years younger than Gary Cooper. And when you said Lee Majors, and you're like, he's just there, I was like, what are you talking about? I thought you meant Lee Marvin.
Oh my God. No.
And I was going to be like, what are you talking about, bro? And then I was like, oh yeah, Lee Majors is fucking boring.
Yeah. He's a TV guy, and he has a bunch of nothing movies. And so what can you really say about this movie? So there turns into like a big thing where like Lee Major's like, I want my money back from these horses that got shut up by this asshole sheriff. But the sheriff's like, I don't care. You can go to the courts and you'll get paid in 2 years. I've got a man to kill. And what winds up happening is Lee Majors goes out into this desert to go get to this David Carradine before he gets killed, just on principle. And they wind up teaming up because this sheriff's a piece of shit. And So there's like that's like the first half hour. Not bad. It's written so the teleplay for this is written by Elmore Leonard, who's a crime writer, written some really good westerns. I like his stuff. That's also one of the reasons why I wanted to check this out because of his credit. But this did not. Outside of that first like half hour, which kind of has the broad strokes of his stuff, this just is like dreary and boring. It's just like a half hour of these guys shooting at each other over and over again in the desert, in the same patch of desert in these hills, and that's it. And it's boring as fuck. And then they go back to town and things wrap up, and it's just like, yep, this is just nothing special at all. Totally
Are there any
skippable.
scenes of guys eating ribs?
No, RJ, there isn't. Now that
I
you've
feel like
mentioned
good
it,
westerns should have people eating ribs.
and now that you've mentioned it, now I like this movie even less.
Yeah. Isn't that like a bad quality for a movie to have?
Absolutely.
Well, this fucking western, no one's eating ribs? What is this shit?
Total shit. There was also a 2000 remake of High Noon starring Tom Skerritt.
Oh, no.
I did not.
Buddy.
I did not watch that because
why not?
It was another TV movie, and his biggest claim to fame is he directed the Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV movie starring David Hasselhoff. Back when superhero movies were great, RJ.
Tom Skerritt was starring as David Hasselhoff?
He starred as Gary Cooper. Because Will Kane. So, yeah. No, I did not watch it.
So what you're saying?
The Legacy of High Noon.
The Legacy of High Noon.
Yeah, it's been nothing. Just watch the original movie, which is always the best advice I can give.
I saw something since we talk about it quite a bit. I actually saw it since it's Oscar season.
Yeah.
That some people at the website IGN made a list of best pictures that didn't win, and High Noon was on here for 1952. The movie that won that year was called The Greatest Show on Earth.
Yes,
which you watched recently.
Yes, you know. I'll let you guess which movie is better, RJ.
Greatest Show on Earth, because I know you really like that one.
I like the acrobat stuff, but that movie is pretty pants. It's pretty middle of the road. No, this movie is a lot better. It won actor, so Gary Cooper won.
Gary Cooper won Best Actor for this.
Yeah. Editing, music score, shit, yeah, and music song, yeah.
Nice.
But and won Golden Globe for actor because people really had a hard on for Gary Cooper. Supporting actress. For what's her name? It's like running through this movie. Yeah, we haven't even talked about like Lloyd Bridges.
Well, I think Lloyd Bridges is really good in this movie, but that Esmeralda thing, I don't like. Like, I get it. I think I see why it's there, but at the same time, whenever that storyline is going on, I'm like, eh.
Yeah.
Or her name's not even Esmeralda, whatever her fucking name is.
Right.
But Lloyd Bridges is super cool. He doesn't look like a normal person, hey?
He looks like a bridge.
He does. Like his facial structure is unlike anything. What's your favorite Lloyd Bridges spoof movies? Airplanes or Hot Shots?
I have to choose between those two. I would have to watch them again to make a fair assessment.
The answer is Hot Shots Part 2.
Yeah. I don't even know if I've actually seen Hot Shots. I've definitely seen Hot Shots Part 2, and I've seen Airplane.
You've never seen Hot Shots?
I don't think so.
This is the end of the podcast.
Yeah, I don't think I have. He's got quite a mixed bag of movies, doesn't he?
Who, Lloyd Bridges?
Yeah.
Dude was in a lot of movies, man.
Yeah, 135. I've seen 8.
2 more than you've had.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are we doing now?
Well, we didn't talk about Lloyd Bridges, but he's good in this.
Yeah, he is good.
So, yeah, I don't know. Gary Cooper's fine in this. Like, I think he's like way better in the Man from the West or Man of the West. He's like really great in that. In this, he's just kind of like there. It's not like I'm not surprised he got probably awards because he's the big name actor and people really probably flocked around that. But I don't know. He's fine. He's really old. Probably too
He
old.
sure is, Jarrett.
Probably too old for this particular performance, and the physicality of beating down Lloyd Bridges and then taking down 4 guys. I don't know.
Yeah, he. Well, I do like that when he fights Lloyd Bridges hits him once, and he's basically like passed out for a minute, because I think Gary Cooper actually just fell asleep for a second, and then he like kind of wakes up again. He's like, "Oh shit!"
I was watching the one little like making of documentary thing that was on the Blu-ray, and like hosted by a young, sexy Leonard Maltin, and he mentions
Sexy Leonard Maltin.
Yeah, you heard me, and he mentions that I guess Gary Cooper's back was all fucked up at the time, and so they had to kind of edit around that. He didn't want to shoot that sequence at that time. So yeah, that's probably why he didn't do a whole lot.
Seems like a great guy.
Yeah, well, he was old, and he loved acting. He loved westerns, as he informs us on the thing. Hey RJ, some people hate High Noon.
Yeah, but I don't feel like I can imagine people are gonna be like, "Oh, this is a boring western."
Okay,
it's boring.
Well, let's see. What does Becca have to say here? 1 star. It's movies like these that make you really wish that Letterboxd had an option to just show a review to your followers versus it is showing up under the movie's main page of reviews because I don't like westerns. I can't
Shut up, Becky.
Well, and this Becca doesn't even know that they'll be read on a podcast. I can't be objective about them. I can give them a chance, but almost every time I do, they bore me to tears. The only real exception to this rule has been Django Unchained. It literally takes over 60 minutes for the main event of the movie to happen, and even that was anticlimactic. The entire lead up to it, I didn't personally feel any tension. I didn't feel sorry for the main character. I was just sort of apathetic about the whole situation and waiting for class to end so I could finish the assignments I have due tomorrow.
What? What grade is this lady in?
Or male? It's just BECA. BECA. Maybe double C. The font's very small.
Whatever. What grade is this human person in?
Yeah.
You fuck.
Yeah. I don't know.
We talk about this all the time. It's like, well, this kind of movie just isn't for me. It's like
1 star.
Don't watch. Yeah, like don't watch it then.
Well, I mean, I was saying the same thing about old Chariots of Fire, but to me, I'd just be like, that's 2 stars. I didn't like that movie, but after beyond that, though, it's like this movie like infuriates me in a way that like really gets to me. And 1 star just seems to be like, I'm a child and I don't like things, but or you have like a real like you better have a real fucking reason. Because or you just fucking hate something, and that's possible too. I've thrown out those 1 stars to some classic movies, but like I want some explanation. Or if you explain it, you better have something clear, and not just I saw this in class.
I saw this in a class I had one time. Oh yeah, what kind of class? You know,
Shaw Wajing gave this 1 star. Whoa, okay there. I knew how highly praised this film was and had seen it on some of the best of lists, so I got pretty excited because the opening credit sequence was really nice. That excitement dissipated once I saw Gary Cooper act. Holy moly. Holy moly? Okay. This could be English as a second language here. Holy moly, is it bad. I also realized once I came to log this that I have never seen a film with Gary Cooper, so I don't know how he usually acts in other films, but I can't see how his acting is anything other than just bad in this film. But it isn't just him. The way a lot of the characters act is stiff and unnatural. The plot has been done 1,000 times, and the actors' performances reflect that. They seem just as slightly invested in it as I was. The same way some modern films are half a step above a Hallmark or Lifetime movie, this one felt like an extended episode of one of those endless Western TV shows from the 50s.
What?
But it does something different by showing a guy being killed by a shock woman when he runs out of bullets and has to reload. Oh, the daring originality of it. Not a classic in my eyes.
What?
So, yes, this movie, this Western from the 50s, feels like one of those Westerns from the 50s.
Yeah, it sure does. Hey, you know what? This is such a tired out plot, especially for Westerns. It's not like this wasn't like a new thing, I think.
Yeah, all those movies about like guys coming to town. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that idea was done after High Noon. It could have been done beforehand, but this is the one that perfected that formula, most likely.
Hey, you know what? I don't think people in the Academy thought that Gary Cooper was a bad actor.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It sounds like the person just doesn't like westerns, and that's it.
That's sad. They should
Sad.
They should move to the Midwest, like us,
where it's fun and it's real life.
Because you want to be a
I would describe Jarrett's life somewhere between Hell and High Water and Sicario. His two favorite movies.
And Wind River.
And Wind River, yeah. He is the Jeremy Renner character throughout all of those.
What's his ass who wrote those movies?
Tay Sheridan, I believe.
Kilmer Brennetz gave this 1.5 stars. So did she just leave all her belongings on the train when she ran off? If so, then who does all that shit on the wagon belong to at the end? Not to be an asshole, but if I can notice that high, tired, sick as hell the first time I watched this movie, and my intro to Story Prof, who's probably seen it 100 times, is holding it up as a paragon of storytelling in film, then I should be teaching that class. Makes me realize what a good teacher Miss A was.
Have you ever seen that subreddit, I Am Very Smart? Where it's like people who are I said something to the teacher and the whole class applauded and the teacher walked out and I taught the class. By the way, Jarrett, I have an answer to this fucking person's snooty and, might I say, incorrect observation. So yeah, Grace Kelly does leave. She doesn't take her baggages with her.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you pay attention and you actually watch this fucking movie, at the end of the movie, the wagon appears that they ride out on, and it's full of her luggage, which makes me believe that the luggage was taken off the train, loaded up onto the wagon, brought back to town, so Gary Cooper could ride that son of a bitch clear out into the west, into the sundown.
RJ, it's bad storytelling. It's bad. It's just bad.
It's not. There was clearly an answer for it. Riding into the sunset.
It completely ruins the movie.
For this person who thinks they're fucking smarter than their professor. It's like, yeah, I've seen some professors that weren't very smart, but it's like, I'm going to teach you this class. Yeah, I really...
show you how it's really done.
Because I noticed this thing.
And I quote.
Nice.
Cool. So High Noon. It's a good one. It's
up there.
It's up there. Do you have any favorite westerns, RJ? Since you were asking me that question.
I'm gonna say Maverick.
Yeah.
And that's an honest answer. I do think Maverick is awesome. That's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite movies, just in general.
Let's see here. I do have a list of my top 20 westerns. That is not at 20 because that's why it's still private.
Hit us with 5.
Okay, I can run through these. I've lent you a few of these. These are ones I hold in high regard. A Bullet for the General, spaghetti western. I think it's actually in some ways better than the Sergio Leone ones. Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, the Sam Peckinpah movie. It's kind of like it's a modern western. So I don't know if it quite counts, but it's definitely out in the desert a lot and weird, grimy, diseased minds. I'm a big fan, having watched it once, of Heaven's Gate, the much maligned Michael Cimino movie. I think that movie is like amazing in scale and stuff like that. Watching the director's cut of the Criterion that they came out with, I think that movie's wicked. But maybe watching it now, I might be more woke to the like really notorious treatment of horses that movie's got. Yeah, it's got some real. Well, it's got like trip lines way after the fact when you should have been doing them. And like cannons going off and whatnot. And then there's High Plains Drifter. Speaking of when you were talking about the Indian fighter. Problematic westerns. This movie is like a horror western, so strange, but I think it's so cool. Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, another Sam Peckinpah. This movie I watched for the first time a few years ago. Think it's just amazing. My friend Corey and I were planning on going through all of Sam Peckinpah's movies this year, and so I'll be rewatching a few of these, like Ride the High Country, another I think all-time classic. One secret movie, not secret, but like pretty like unknown movie that I liked a lot when I was going through a Western phase was Silver Load from 1954. It's actually very kind of reminiscent of High Noon, very low key movie, just about like a man and the cowardice of a town around him that like they all love him until his like identity is put into question, and then suddenly everybody starts turning on him, even though he's done all these things right. And it's all about him proving that he's not what this guy's saying he is. That movie's great and is unfortunately not really available in a great copy or anything like that, but it's really good. Stagecoach, the classic Western with John Wayne. That movie is amazing, so well made. For modern movies, Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. That movie is amazing. I absolutely love it. The Big Country from the director Ben-Hur, William Wyler. That movie was really impressive when I watched it. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, I think, is my favorite of the Leo movies. Oxbow Incident, another movie about like the shittiness of human beings. The Searchers, I think you have to include because it's that movie. There's the Burt Lancaster, like kind of Vietnam Western, Alzana's Raid, which is like dark, fucked up, like movie of just don't fuck with the Indians, don't go into land that's not yours because they will mess you up. And a good companion piece to that movie is Chado's Land, starring Charles Bronson. And Unforgiven, which I think is probably the best picture winner ever. I might go out on
the best ever. Are you saying that is the best movie ever?
Yes.
Made?
I think it's the best of movies that have won Best Picture. I think it's the best. I think.
Wow. What about The Sixth Sense?
That didn't win Best Picture.
Didn't it though?
RJ just sent me a link to the Sam Peckinpah film Junior Bonner, starring Steve McQueen.
That's not how you say that word.
Yeah, not Bonner. Well, I'll find out because I'll be watching that movie soon.
Yeah.
It's about
I figured Junior Boner would be big on your list of must watch.
I haven't watched it yet. I heard it might not be as great as you'd hope because it's a contemporary Western. It's about a cowboy rodeo rider type of figure.
Does it have any boners in it?
Well, maybe the main character, if that's how his last name is pronounced. But yeah, so Unforgiven is like, and also shot in our very own backyard.
Oh.
And Winchester 73, I think, is the best Anthony Mann Western of the ones I watched. And you know what? On my list, I'm missing some Bud Buddicker, so that's an oversight for sure.
Fuck, that's not even a list at all then.
I know. What the hell?
You better take that son of a bitch down.
Yeah, don't take me seriously, folks.
I don't know who that Bucker.
Bud Beddicker, yeah, he's he's good. It's probably the one that he did with Lee Marvin that's my favorite of his, 7 Man Down or something like that. Anyways, Westerns are awesome. You can talk to me about them anytime, folks. It's one of my faves. I have a whole list of Western project movies.
Email us and tell us why Maverick is the best Western.
Exactly. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Cowboys.
Pew pew.